بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Continuing on our lessons on emotional intelligence from an Islamic perspective, we spoke about last week on the third component, and we continue from there, which is showing empathy towards others in their interactions. For the very meaning, or you could say the essence of emotional intelligence, is to be empathetic. And those who are empathetic, those who have the feelings of empathy and compassion to others, then they treat them in ways which are most noble. But when there's an absence of empathy in somebody's heart, or in their character, or in their understanding of the deen, then they do things to others. They treat others in a way that they wouldn't love to be treated. And so we should know as Muslims the essence behind the idea of empathy is to remember that we're supposed to treat others the way that we want to be treated. If you're feeling a certain way, upset or angry, or you find someone else that way, you want to treat them in a way that if had you been the one upset, you would love someone to treat you that way. As it comes in the hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr al-As, or Amr ibn al-As, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, وَلْيَأْتِي إِلَى النَّاسِ مَا يُحِبُّ أَن يُؤْتَى إِلَيْهِ. Let everyone treat others the way they want to be treated. Hadith Muslim. This is the golden principle, they call it, because all religions have that principle. Do unto others what you love to be done to you. That's the essence of empathy. So if you remember this, most of what we're talking about today follows into the hadith. You see someone upset, you see someone did a mistake, you see someone is embarrassed, you see someone, you don't call them out or mistreat them or do something that you wouldn't like others do to you. But when you see absence of empathy though, or you see people who are indifferent to the feelings of others, then where is that coming from? It's coming from a lack of understanding of yourself, had you been in that position, but also the brotherhood and sisterhood in Islam. The Muslim isn't just a brother of another Muslim. Al-mu'minu mira'atu akhihi mu'min. Hadith Sahih, the believer is the mirror of his fellow brother. So if you see someone in a certain way, you see yourself as well. You fix them, you correct them. But if you see others other than like the way you see yourself, then when they do a mistake, you're opportunistic, you take advantage. Or you say, mashallah, this is my chance to maybe embarrass or humiliate this person, I don't like them. Or they did something, I want to just, I feel like I should make a joke out of it. But if it was you, you'd be nervous and scared, and that's why Muslims have to have this principle. I want to talk about today the first point, or first example of, again, the Prophet ﷺ and the Sharia, and what it teaches about emotional intelligence, is at-taghaful. From the characteristics of the believer is at-taghaful. Taghaful means to pretend you didn't see what you saw. So ghafla, it means heedlessness. Taghaful is to deliberately pretend like you didn't see it. So what? So in this form, right? Tafa'ul here, it's going to be taghaful in that form, in that pattern, which means to purposely pretend that you didn't see something, willingly. Why? Because you want to move on. You don't want to embarrass someone. You don't want to call someone out for a mistake. At-taghaful is really intentional. So someone does something wrong, instead of making a scene or saying something, just ignore it. You pretend like you never heard it, never saw it. It's a very important quality, for the believer cannot be one who everything is an issue. And let's look at this hadith. Abdul ibn Zam'ah radiallahu anhu said, one day the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam was giving us an admonition about passing wind in public. See, ikhwani, in Islam, what happened was the Sahaba were sitting and someone passed wind in the majlis. So people began to laugh, as many of us we do, and it's not correct. It's not allowed in Islam to do that. Many of us, we grew up right, like this way, that we find it funny. But Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he saw the Sahaba doing that. He said, لِمَا يَضْحَكُ أَحَدُكُم مِّمَّا يَفْعَلُ. Why is any one of you laughing at something that you yourself do? And you pass wind, somebody else is passing wind. Why are you laughing at them when they pass wind? And look at this idea, Hadith Bukhari. Look at this hadith, so simple. Why are you laughing at that which you yourself do? And if you put the things around, imagine it was you. You're sitting in the majlis and you pass wind. And remember, not everyone's the same. Some people have health issues. They can't help it. وَلَا عَلَى الْمَرِيضِ حَرَجٍ. And there's no blame on the sick. But imagine someone who's physically sick, he can't control their gas, but you have bad etiquette, bad manners. You're laughing at someone who Allah doesn't hold accountable for making wudu even for every salah. And you're coming here laughing at them. SubhanAllah, it's bad culture. Even here, as a culture, it's a big deal. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam taught this. So what's the hadith teaching us? Imam Nawawi comments, rahimahullah. In this hadith, he says prohibition laughing at someone who passes wind. When you hear it, بَلْ يَنْبَغِي أَنْ يَتَغَافَلَا. Brother, when you hear someone do that, pretend like you never heard and you never saw nothing. بَلْ يَنْبَغِي أَنْ يَتَغَافَلَا. Right? عنها ويستمر على حديثه, and you continue talking like normal. واشتغاله بما كان فيه من غير التفات, and keep going with your just as if you never saw nothing. So imagine you're sitting down with someone, saw him pass wind, you didn't hear nothing, I didn't smell nothing, I don't know what you're talking about. That's Islam. Not today, who passed the wind, who farted, what's going on? That's our culture. This is unfortunately how low we've become. In Allah Ta'ala يحب المكارم الأخلاق ويكره سفسافها. Hadith sahih. Allah, He loves the high moral characters. He hates lowliness. Safsaf, foolishness. Imagine we're laughing at someone for something that is an accident, embarrassing. So this hadith is a beautiful point to highlight at-taghaful. And taghaful is the characteristics of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he was the one giving the majlis. He was talking the halaqah, and then he noticed that someone passed wind and they started laughing, so he had to correct them. Don't do that. So what happened then, we learn from something like this happens, you ignore it. It's a beautiful etiquette. And where is it coming from? It's coming from the emotional intelligence, the empathy you have in your heart. Because if that was you, everyone is probably, all of us have been in that situation before. Or something similar, your stomach growls, right? Because you're so hungry, you didn't eat anything, and everyone hears you. You just hope no one heard you. So as Muslims, we should have this level of akhlaq and etiquette. And again, someone who's empathetic, someone who has emotional intelligence can do that. Someone who is not like that will be calling out someone and having to make a joke out of it because this is their chance. Because, this is the perfect time to make fun of this person. Look what happened. And unfortunately, we do this to each other. And what happens later, we wonder when we're not so close to each other. We're not good Muslims anymore. We don't like each other. So one of the big problems Muslims should remember is that Islam calls us to higher etiquette, but also remember where does these other characteristics coming from. Come from the sickness of the heart, a misunderstanding of akhuwah, and friendship. A lot of times people think a friend is someone who's a punching bag, easy target. No, your friend has more huquq on you than others. And that's the irony that you probably find. That as strangers, you would be embarrassed to do that. Right? You don't know somebody that did that, you start making fun of them, you don't know that person. You probably feel embarrassed. But if your close friend, oh yeah, this guy's okay. No, this guy has more haqq than that person you don't know. And as a Muslim, even more. And that's why we have to also correct our relationships. Many of our friendships and relationships are broken. Musa alayhi salam and Harun alayhi salam, brothers and both prophets. When Musa asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to choose his brother Harun as his friend and his fellow prophet, and that's what scholars say Musa is one of the best, if not the best brother to another brother. When Allah chose him, he said, Allah, how about my brother? Can he be a prophet too? Choose him as well. He's the best. And he became a prophet. Allah gave him that. He said, my brother as well. Why? Ustud bi azri. So he can strengthen me. He can support me. That's what you want. You don't want a friend who's always, when you pass wind, he's making fun of you. You fall down, he's recording you. This is the things that we learn from, unfortunately, our society. And I'm going to look at a beautiful qissa here about one of the imams, how he dealt with this. But taghaful is not only for these instances. Taghaful is for all kinds of instances. And it's a beautiful etiquette we should all have, especially husband to wife. And if you want to prove for it, Surah Tahrim. And we know if you read the Surah Tahrim, read the backstory, what happened to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, his wives Hassan, Aisha, and Maryam, and Qibtiyya. And the story behind it, you can read the tafsir, Ibn Kathir, or others about this background, Asbab al-Nuzul, etc. But in any case, Nabi ﷺ wanted to talk to one of his wives about what happened. Hassan and Aisha, they came together against one of the other wives. Right? Because again, this happens amongst co-wives. This is something which is understandable. But look what the Prophet ﷺ, he wanted to talk to her about what happened. With أَسَرَّ النَّبِيُّ لَبَعْدِ أَزْوَاجِ حَدِيثًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when the Prophet ﷺ privately spoke to one of his wives, or disclosed the matter to one of his wives about what happened, in this case with Hafsa, so when she told right? Because when she told her what happened, and Allah made known to him alayhi salatu wasalam some things and hidden other things. Then when he told Hafsa what happened, because Allah told him, she said, who told you? So the point I want to mention here, Allah made it known to him, He informed her part thereof and left part of. That part I want to highlight. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is talking to Hafsa, he knows what happened. Allah revealed to him what happened. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam talking to her, why did you do this? And what does he do? عَرَّفَ بَعْضُهُ وَأَعْرَضَ عَنْ بَعْض. Some parts of what happened he told her, some parts he left it. At-taghaful. Some parts you don't need to talk about. We'll talk about this part. Now I'm going to have to pull you up on everything you did. Taghaful is ignore some. Look at this Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam character. He could have told him, why you guys did all of this. I know the whole story. No, he just focused on one part and left the other part. That's from his high character. And scholars say that's the essence of taghaful. Someone made a mistake, you want to advise them, pick something. You don't have to take all of it. Yeah, it's not time for that. And also here, something happened, it's not, forget it, ignore it. Now let's look at a story to show one of the great Imams. It happened to him the same. It's mentioned by Imam Ibn al-Qayyim in Madarij al-Salikin, volume 2, page 344, that one day, the Imam Hatim al-Asam, his name is Hatim al-Asam, he's one of the Salaf, the pious predecessors. A woman came to him asking him an issue. And when she was talking to him, suddenly she passed wind in front of him. فَخَجَلَتْ. And then she became embarrassed. Imagine, she came to ask him a question, and then she passed wind in front of him. So what did he do? He pretended like he never heard her, or never heard what happened. He said, "Irfi'i sawtiki." Raise your voice, I can't hear you. He pretended like he has a hard of hearing. So imagine, imagine this situation. Someone comes to you, to ask you a question, just you and them. So this kid's the old woman and the sheikh. She passes wind, he pretends like he doesn't hear him. In fact, he pretends that he can't hear well. He says, "Can you raise your voice? I can't hear you." فَأَوْهَمَهَا أَنَّهُ أَصَمٌ. At that moment, she thought he can't hear well. Asam means someone who's deaf or hard hearing. That's his nickname, Hatim Asam. He's not actually hard hearing. This is how he became hard hearing. He pretended like he couldn't hear her, but he could. فَسُرَّتْ الْمَرْءَ بِذَلِكَ. She became happy because of this, because she felt relieved that if he can't hear my voice, he probably couldn't hear me passing wind. For there, that's how the sheikh, he says, student, said, إِنَّهُ لَمْ يَسْمَعِ صَوْتِ. He himself, she said, oh, he doesn't hear me, or he can't hear my voice, or didn't hear me passing wind. فَقُلِّبَ بِحَاتِمٍ أَصْلًا. From that day on, he was called Hatim, the one of hard of hearing. Allahumma barak. Look at this guy. Brothers, this is the way we want to be. This is the imams that we talk about when we talk about following. This is the akhlaq they had. Ilm wal adab. Imagine he didn't, in that kind of situation, you can only have two choices: make it worse or make it better. So he made it better, just pretending like. And it's not the only one. Many of the Salaf, they were in situations which are very embarrassing, but they always take the high road. Why? Lillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why when you read the biographies of Salaf, it's all about applying the knowledge that they had. And because of these sacrifices they made, Allah raised their levels. Allah raised their levels. The things that they used to do for Allah's sake. And then maybe another time we'll talk about another Imam who he got himself in a really awkward situation. He married a woman, he didn't even like how she looks. He had no idea how she looked. And what do you think he did with us? He never divorced her till the day he died. He said, I hope Allah will give me Jannah because of that. And if you read that story, you'll be amazed. And unbelievable. It's an amazing story, like what happened to him. So these Imams, their level of taqwa is higher than all of us. But we also want to aspire to see good akhlaq because she looked at the position she was in. She's embarrassed. She's the Imam. She wanted to ask an issue. He just ignored it. Okay, what you got? We have to try to take that approach. So that's a very good examples of emotional intelligence because you understand what someone else is going through. So what you could do, obviously, you could do what the Shaykh did. You can just ignore at-taghaful, or you could take other approaches which change the subject. For example, somebody's talking to you and they said something really wild or outrageous. It's not a good thing they said. What should you do about that? Some of us be like, oh boy, I have to hold this brother accountable. How could you say that? But you could also just ignore it and just keep going with the conversation, pretend you never heard what he said. Especially because if you want to advise them, as we'll come to later, you don't want to advise the person there. As we'll come later. Because if someone did something wrong in your presence, you want to correct them. How do you do that? So maybe you just ignore it. So I'll give you an example. Muslim and Ahmed and also Abu Dawood, the hadith was authentic. One day Abu Bakr Siddiq was with another Sahabi and another man upset him. He became very angry, Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr at that time was the Khalifa. So the Sahabi, when he saw Abu Bakr, how angry he was with this other man, the Sahabi said to Abu Bakr, should I just take his head off? Yani, you want me to punish this guy? Abu Bakr, when he heard the man talk, the Sahabi talk about killing him, فَصَرَفَ عَنْ hadith. He changed the topic immediately, something else. And then he told the Sahabi, Abu Bakr, come here. Were you actually going to do that? You're actually going to take this Sahabi's head off? He said, well, if you told me, he said, no, it's not allowed for anybody except for Rasulullah. It means if anyone criticizes Abu Bakr or Umar or the Sahaba, they get ta'zeer, but not a capital punishment. That's for ta'an Rasulullah, blaspheming the Prophet. But what I want to highlight this hadith is the part of Abu Bakr when he heard the man talk about killing. فَصَرَفَ عَنْ hadith. He just heard the topic, just keep moving. That's the way we should be. Today, sometimes you sit with your friends, he says something, you just ignore it, you never heard nothing. And it's better that way. Why? Because if you don't, what is left? Okay, what did you say? And you have a big, we have to have a big inquisition right there and advise him, what are you saying that stuff? And next thing you know, everybody's arguing. And most of us, we also know that if somebody made a mistake, let's say he said something inappropriate, isn't it better to give them nasiha when no one's there? And we'll get to that later. How to give nasiha and where it comes from is emotional intelligence, empathy. Next example I want to talk about, تحمل كلمات أهل الفضل. Having forbearance and burdening the statements that are difficult that may come from people of righteousness. Means someone of taqwa, they may criticize you. They may maybe have to advise you. Maybe they even have to hold you accountable for a mistake. How do we react when that happens? We have to have tahammul. We have to hold that. We have to bear it. We should not be angry. Because the people of fadl and people of virtue, they have a right over us. So for example, you could be a parent, a sheikh, a mentor, a person you look up to. He's advising you something, you don't like it. So what do? Most of us will say, well, I'm going to retaliate. That's wrong. This is a sheikh. This is your teacher. This is your parents. This is your mentor. You're not going to do that. You're not allowed to do that. Because they have huquq, they have rights over you. And it's also important to understand that if they're trying to advise you, where are they coming from? Really, they want to fix you. And it's important because everyone who has a teacher, everyone who has a mentor, anyone who has someone to look up to, they're going to hold you accountable if they care about you. At least they're going to advise you something. They're going to try to help you. And sometimes you might not like it. So what do? Tahammul, carry it. With a wide chest. It's okay. He's trying to help me. Trying to fix me. That's how I understand it. Let's look at some examples. Prophet Musa and Harun alayhi salam. Harun is older than Musa, right? And Musa came back after speaking to Allah and receiving Torah. وَأَلْقَى الْأَلْوَاحِ. He threw the Torah, the tablets, or the pieces, and the tablets, literally, not tablet like a computer, but like they say, al-wah is literally the planks, so what do you want to call it? But Allah wrote the Torah for him. He threw it in the ground, Musa alayhi salam. وَأَخَذَ بِرَأْسِ أَخِيهِ يُجُرُّهُ إِلَيْهِ. And he grabbed Harun by the head, pulling him towards him. Because so angry for Allah's sake of what they were doing of shirk. And we know Harun was exempted because he advised them but they didn't listen. And they threatened to kill him. So look how Harun's older, he's also a prophet, he also has an excuse. What did Harun deal with this? How did he deal with it? Did he go back and start wrestling Musa and say, oh, you're trying to fight me? I'm older than you. Musa is a prophet and messenger. It's higher level. And his brother, so he said, قال يا ابن أم لا تأخذ برأسي ولا برأسي. Oh the son of my mother or my nephew, don't take me by my head or my beard. Essentially, he gave him a good reply and he explained to him. And scholars explained the answer that Harun was giving there was so gentle, even though Musa's reaction was anger, because Musa was justified in his anger, because he was angry for Allah's sake. That's why Allah didn't punish him for throwing the al-wah on the floor. And literally threw while Allah wrote from the Torah, he threw it on the floor out of anger for Allah's sake. So he's pardoned. And this is an example of getting angry for Allah's sake. But how did Harun react to Musa? That's the one I want to focus on. Is Musa alayhi salam. His brother, he has status, so he has to, he responded in a nice way. Same thing. If somebody you look up to said, maybe they hold you accountable. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Our reaction might be, hey, I don't care. I'm going to respond to you in a negative way. No, this is not right. Especially considering that person has a virtue and he has haqq over me. Especially if he helped me. In this case, we said, Musa asked Allah to make Harun a prophet. Right? Is it right for now Harun, when something's happening, to do something against Musa? Musa has a haqq over him, Harun, on that angle. See? This is important. Sometimes we always forget our relationship between people. Somebody owes you something or you did something great for you. You got to be mindful of it. Try to be nice in how you respond. Have the take the higher road. And that's emotional intelligence, because it's going to make the situation better. Let's give another example. Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, him and Abu Ubaidah were talking. This was during the time when Abu Ubaidah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu came to Sham. Sahaba were coming together to go to Sham, and in that time there was the plague. So Abu Ubaidah said to Umar, when they were consulting one another, what should we do? Should we go inside the city because of the plague, or should we turn back? So what did Abu Ubaidah said, Umar, afirara min qadrillah, you're running away from the qadr of Allah. Because Umar said we should turn back. Umar said, when he heard that, because Umar, he's basing his judgment based on the hadith of Abu Hurairah, that when there's a plague in the city, don't enter it. And if you're in it, don't leave it. And also, you can't flee from the qadr of Allah anyways. To take the means is from the qadr of Allah. So what did Umar say when Abu Ubaidah asked him this question? He said, لو غيرك قالها يا أبو عبيدة. If someone else besides you, Abu Ubaidah, I wish someone else besides you said that. Because he's a person, he's one of the top 10 Sahaba. I wish it wasn't you who said that. But he wasn't so angry with him, because they had fadl. You see, this is important. وَأَنزِلْ النَّاسْ مَنَازِلُهُمْ. This is somebody who has high status. Just like, remember, Umar and Abu Ubaidah met also. And Umar was walking through the ditch in the water with his horse, with his khuf on his shoulder. Abu Ubaidah said, how can you come like this? Amir al-Mu'mineen, they're going to think differently. He said, Abu Ubaidah, if anyone else said that, I would have beat them. I would have given them an example. But you have status. He pardoned him. This is how we should be. We have to have this kind of understanding, because people are different, right? So imagine someone is telling you this, and the person who's telling you is highly respecting your eyes. So then give the person his haqq. It's also part of being fair, because our natural reaction is, if someone says something bad to me, I have to retaliate. And we treat everybody the same, right? This is wrong. Right? A child makes a mistake, you have a response. An enemy harmed you, you have a response. A friend harmed you, you have a response. Somebody higher status, you have a response. Another example, Umar himself again. For Bukhari and Muslim, when Umar went to the Prophet ﷺ to visit him, and he found the women were talking to the Prophet ﷺ, they're raising their voice in his company. So as soon as Umar pulled the veil and came inside, and the women ran behind the veil. Umar came in, he was so upset. So how are you guys raising your voice in front of Rasulullah? The women said, Anta afaddu wa aghradu min Rasulullah. The women said, you are tougher and rougher than Rasulullah. And what did Umar say in response? Nothing. Right? That's the way he's supposed to be. Right? They said something, he didn't like to hear that. It's true, Umar is tougher. But Nabi Sallallahu responded for him. I said, leave him. If he walks one street, Shaitan takes the other. But what do we take from this? Umar, when the woman told him this, you're tough and rough, he didn't get angry. He said, who are you to talk to me like that? Right, this is the woman, it's okay. He just kept quiet. If you're a person of virtue and someone says something true or false about you, you don't have to instead of react. We also take a look at who's saying it and what they're saying. And I think it's also important for us to be mindful of that, because it also helps you build your character and emotion. Because part of being emotionally intelligent is understanding the people and their levels, and also reacting in a way that's appropriate. We said it for self-regulating. Because it could have been someone else who said that, your response would be tailored to the person who said it. But someone of virtue told you something, said something you didn't like, you're not going to react the same. And if you did, then you're the one who was mistaken. Let's give another example now, which is do with how you interact with your friends when it comes to informing them of things. Most of us know if something reaches you of news that somebody you know spoke bad about someone else you know, is it good etiquette for you to carry that news and tell that person, you know what so-and-so said about you? It's not a good etiquette. And the reason why, because if that was you, you wouldn't want to know that. So Islamically, the good etiquette is that if someone, you know, cursed a friend of yours, it's not befitting for you to go and tell the other friend what the other person said. It's not good etiquette. The better etiquette, first of all, is to advise the person who said bad things about them and defend that person's honor. That's the correct thing. And if you talk to the other person, you don't tell them, you know what so-and-so said? Right? That's how it all starts, you know. And many times we do this innocently. Because, you know, we say we're trying to help the person out. You're not helping them out. It's better you don't tell them. Scholars, they say this is the best way. And some of them, the Arab, they have method, سَبَّكَ مَنْ بَلَّغَ سَبَّ. He cursed you or insulted you, the one who tells you someone else has insulted you. Right? Because if I don't know, what I don't know doesn't harm me. Right? It's true, right? Most of us, we know there's people out there talking bad about us, but who cares? I don't want to hear it, and I feel comfortable. But imagine you came to me as a friend and said, you know that guy, what he's saying? I don't care. But now you came and told me, now you made me feel upset. And so scholars say the best thing is to do if someone did that, advise the other person and don't tell the other person. Because imagine it was you. You might be thinking you're doing good, but imagine now, think if that was you. And your friend comes to you every time, this guy what he's saying about you, and that guy what he's saying about you. The first question is, why do you hang on people who are saying bad things about me? That's the question you should be asking. Why do you hang on those kind of people? But also, if somebody's talking bad about you, then you ask how to guide them. Especially if somebody is supposed to be close to you. Ibn Hazm, he writes, rahimahullah, do not repeat to your friend things that will make him unhappy, which would not benefit him to know. That would be an action of a fool. And don't hide from him anything that will cause him loss not to know. And that would be an action of a wicked person. That's a beautiful statement there, right? So don't repeat to your friends that which will make him unhappy and won't benefit him had he known it. Means if you told me someone cursed me, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't benefit me. That's an action of a fool, he says. And don't hide from someone. Something's going to harm me. If you know something's coming my way I don't know about, of harm, it's good you tell me. Right? Because that's part of nasiha. You can say, for example, so-and-so is trying to harm you, or so-and-so said this is going to happen to you. That's good, because now I can protect myself. So here we take a benefit that part of the emotional intelligence is also being mindful of what we're telling each other. And we shouldn't only look at intentions, we should look more also at the repercussions. And the Sharia of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam comes with the consideration of end results. Right? Our Sharia, one of the principles is mura'at al-ma'al. We look at the end result of things. What's the end result of what I say and do? And it's one of the ways you make a judgment if something is correct or not. So for example, if I want to decide if I should do something or say something, I look to the end result. If I said this, is it going to cause a fight? If I did this, is it going to cause a problem? That's part of the Sharia. Now, Shatibi mentions this, rahimahullah, and others, that you consider the end results of your actions. So sometimes the fatwa is based on that. Some fatwa is based on what will happen. Not what happens now, but if you did this will happen, then don't do it. So even ourselves, if I know, I go to my friend, I tell him, something is going to make him upset, no, don't tell him. That's good etiquette. Because you know the result. And this is the way we should be, and also remember yourself. Because some of us, we forget that maybe we mean well, but you have to also put yourself in the shoes. What if that was you? Now let's move to another example. Sometimes people, they talk to us in a way that's not befitting. They may be too direct. Or maybe they're challenging us or opposing us. How do we deal with that? So it's kind of like what we mentioned before, that you have to have that kind of patience. But also you have to understand that people, when they try to respond to you, sometimes they're too direct. Right? There's different ways of speaking to people. Sometimes you make tasrih, you say it clearly, and sometimes you make talmih, you hint. Okay, it's important to know talmih with tasrih. Tasrih is someone says, you're wrong. Talmih is someone, you don't go around here and I mention a hadith about people who did something wrong. He's not talking about you, but you get the hint, maybe you're wrong. Talmih is also a good etiquette. Tasrih, sometimes it happens. And it's not good to do tasrih when you can use other methods. But what do you do when someone is too direct? And you feel like, I don't deserve that. You should be more considerate when you're talking to me. Let's look at Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam's high emotional intelligence. Because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has the highest level of emotional intelligence. He's so forbearing. One day, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's with the Sahaba, and he prayed the Salah, and we studied this hadith before in fiqh, and he shortened the Salah, on the Salawat al-Ruba'iyya, the 4 rak'ah prayers. Could be Dhuhr or could be Asr. So Dhul Yadayn, the Sahabi nicknamed Dhul Yadayn because he had very long hands. He came to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam and he said, Rasulullah, you missed something. You forgot something in the prayer. He said, Ya Nabiyullah, aqasrat as-salatu am nasit. Did the salah get shorter or did you forget? Now this is tasrih. He's saying it clearly. We know Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the Prophet and Messenger, alayhi salatu salam. We can't talk to him in ways that's not befitting. But he didn't intend otherwise, but he said it in a way which is clear. So he asked the question. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa said, Lam ansa wa lam tuqsar. I didn't forget, I didn't shorten the prayer. So Abdul Yadayn again, and the other Sahaba with him said, Bal nasit ya Rasulullah, but Rasulullah, you forgot. I want you to think about this. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa said, I didn't forget. They say, Rasulullah, you forgot. How would most of us react? The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, I forgot. You probably think, many of us think, who you think you're talking to? That's how we're going to react. I told you didn't forget. You talking to me like that? Especially nowadays, if you're the imam. Right? Because you're like, you think you get out of the masjid. You're not coming back here again. Coming calling out the imam like that. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam told me, Rasulullah, you forgot. What did he do? The other Sahaba confirmed, he got up and prayed what he's missed. That's Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at that humility. Because they're clear, they were so clear in saying that because they wanted to fix the mistake. They don't mean disrespect. Sometimes some people don't know anyone else how to answer you. They might say something, I wish you didn't say it like that, but it's okay, you said it. Or someone said something to you directly for you to understand. We have to learn how to interpret people's questions or their responses. Do they mean well or they don't mean well? Most of us, again, we're sensitive. Everyone's sensitive to this kind of direct response. When someone tells you they made a mistake or you're wrong. But when you look at someone who told you that and they actually mean well, you have to say, well, okay, fine. That's part of being emotionally intelligent. You don't always have to be right. Okay, brother, it's very important. We don't always have to be right. And when you're wrong, there's no problem with saying, okay, I'm wrong. Or, subhanAllah, I didn't know. And even though the person, the way they said it might not have been the best, or maybe they said it in a way that you wish they said it a different way, it doesn't matter, right? Now the person, he said it, they said it. You have to be the bigger man. And this is important because imagine, right, you were the one who had to do that. You would hope the other person would concede. Right? So think about it. Someone comes to you and does that, right? You would hope that the other person, right, who's advising you would hope, if it was me, I would hope that person would concede so I wouldn't have to escalate this further. I'm trying to help you. And that's a lot of times what happens when you give advice. You give advice and then someone else has to give you back advice and then both of you are giving advice and no one's listening to each other. If someone's advising you, just take it. Even if he's wrong. You see, well, that's important. If he's right, mashallah. What if he give you advice, he's wrong? You smile and say, Jazakallah khair. Because he's trying to come from a good place. Right? He's giving nasiha, right? Amatul Muslimin, right? So it's okay. But if he's wrong, why have to get angry? Right? He could say something from his heart, he thinks he's right. You know he's wrong. Jazakallah khair for that good advice. Or for caring about me. But many times what happens is you have to correct him. No, you're wrong. Why are you telling me what kind of advice you're giving? And at the end of the day, imagine it was the other way around. Because this is what happens, right? Now you want to give the good advice to somebody else. Okay? Don't you wish they just conceded? But you don't concede. You don't listen. Why is that guy going to listen? And this is unfortunately a problem. So many people complain, no one listens to advice. Are we listening to advice? First of all, forget, you want to dish it out. Are you taking it? And there's other examples as well that happen as well from Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's life. Inshallah, but we'll move on to the next one for a second. And this is an important idea of taking on these kind of things because you're intelligent. You understand the person, what they're trying to get out of it. Okay, another example is when it comes to making and treating people well, it's also important to rejoice when people are having a good time or they're having something good news comes to them, that you're happy when they're happy. And like we said before, we spoke about being sad when people are sad. It's also part of good etiquette and also to be emotionally intelligent. When someone's happy, you be happy with them and for them. All right? This is also part of our Sharia. And what that means is if you see someone, good news happen, let's say somebody got a new job, someone was successful, someone, they got out of fitna. You know this news. What do? You show happiness for them, for their successful and blessed moment. The same way that if it happened to you, we hope everybody will congratulate you and show you that. So this is also important because a lot of times when you see someone is having a good moment or something good happened to them, and you don't congratulate them, it's also inappropriate reaction. Because had that been you wouldn't want someone just to be like, yeah. And if you go out your way sincerity, because the Muslim is the one who loves what's good for his brother. Let's look at an example. Ka'b bin Malik, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the long hadith, when he was finally forgiven after the boycott for missing the Battle of Tabuk, he said, I entered the masjid after I heard the news that I've been pardoned and forgiven. He said, I entered the masjid and everybody was there. فَقَامَ إِلَيْهِ طَلْحَةً Talha stood up, radiallahu anhu. يُحَرْوِلُهُ He running towards me. And he embraced me. And he hugged me for the news that he heard that I was forgiven. And Ka'b said, لا أنساه لطلحة. I will never forget what Talha did for me that day. See, the small things they count. Imagine, Talha came running to him, hugged him, and said, "Allah pardon you." He said, "Dad, I can't forget what he did for me that day." Yeah, some must wonder, well, what did he do? He just hugged him. But he showed concern. That's what most of us are looking for. Somebody cares, someone appreciates you. Because those small things, they have a big record. But imagine, everyone else was happy for him, but Talha stood up and hugged him. That's what he's looking. That was what he needed. And that's what we should be doing. Something happened to them, you don't need to wait for them to tell you. You call them, you see them, say, I heard this good news. That comes from the heart. That's the emotionally intelligent person, because you want that person to feel that enjoyment. But imagine it was you now. Imagine now you're the one who has a good moment and nobody does anything special. You feel like, subhanAllah, no one really cares. Or maybe you feel like some people, they're not as expressive of what they feel. And it's okay to be expressive. In fact, this is what's recommended. Right? Someone gets married, you congratulate them, right? Make dua for them. You give them a gift. This is our deen. Someone's sad, we're there for them. But it's not someone went through someone's in a good position of happiness, and we're just all like, no, nothing. And some scholars like Ibn Hazm also mentioned that a friend is the one who's happy when you're happy, sad when you're sad. And if you find someone who's happy when you're sad and sad when you're happy, that's a hasid. Stay away. Because some of us, we don't know. Right? If someone's not happy for your happiness, that's not a friend. That's an envious person. Stay away from them. Let's look at another example. It was to do with advice, and emotionally intelligent advice. Because when you want to give advice, you have to really take the context into consideration. Because you know people are sensitive, especially when you're correcting them. So scholars, they always talked about focusing on the way that you're going to give the advice as much as what you're saying. A lot of us, we think I'm a man, I say it like it is. No. What kind of deen is that? You're a man, you say what it is. That's not deen. Because if that's the case, then you have no care for their brothers. You don't care about, and that's the farq. That's the difference between nasiha wal fadiha. The difference between advice and exposing people. It's not, I'm a man, I say it is. If you're a man, why are you posting online? Go and tell them directly, privately, sincerely. Because you want good for them, or you want. And we're going to see the difference, because some people, they masquerade with this idea, I have to advise them. I had to do it in public, in front of everybody. Well, you don't have to. I'm not talking about tahdeer, or tabdi', or tafsiq, or these other big issues. I'm talking about someone made a mistake. You know you can correct it a different way, but you just had to post it. You had to blast them online in front of everybody in the group. A lot of times, brothers, what we notice, when it comes to nasiha, we forget the message, the delivery, it counts just as much as the message. It does. Example, when you give nasiha, the asl is you try to do it silently and quietly. And this is because that's more likely for the person to accept. Privacy is concern. Imam Shafi'i says, Rahimahullah, man wa'ada akhahu sirran, whosoever admonishes his brother silently or quite privately, فَقَدْ نَصَحَهُ وَزَانَهُ, he has advised him and has adorned him. وَمَنْ وَعَدَهُ عَلَانِيَةً, whoever has advised him publicly, فَقَدْ فَضَحَهُ وَشَانَهُ, he's really has humiliated him and he has put him down. Ulama spend a lot of time differentiating between what is advice and what's condemnation. To condemn someone in public is different than nasiha. And refutations against someone is a bab nasiha as well. But if you're trying to advise someone, you gotta make sure you're picking the best approach. And today what's happening is people, they say, I'm advising you. It's like, well, I don't know. Why everybody have to advise me in public? Everybody's advising me. Everyone's mashallah nasihin. Right? That's not. Some of us were just saying that, and the scholars have spent time differentiating it. If you want a kitab Ibn Rajab, you could read Risala Hafiz Ibn Rajab. It's in English. The difference between nasiha wa ta'yir. Difference between nasiha and defaming people. And also Ibn Qayyim has a beautiful speech we're going to read here from Kitab al-Ruh. And the reason why I'm saying this is that because sometimes you have to take it public. Again, like someone did something wrong, a bid'ah, an openly wrong thing, I have to read in public. That's okay. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about someone made a mistake. You felt that, that was wrong. You should have never done that. Or someone did something cringe. Yeah? Someone did something like, you just feel bad for them. I can miss the message. Let me call this guy. Because you want to fix the situation. You really are sincere. And then, if you didn't, and you had no other means, that's different. But I'm talking about today, people, they have to make sure they're trying their best. Ibn Hazm, he writes, rahimahullah, وَإِذَا نَصَحْتَ فَانْصَحْ سِرًّا لَا جَهْرًا. If you advise someone, do it private, not public. وبتعريض وتسريح, and do it indirectly, not directly. إلا أن لا يفهم المنصوح Unless someone doesn't, and the person you advise doesn't understand, تعريضك فلا بد من تصريحه. If they don't get the indirect, you gotta say clearly. But today, when you go online, you see everybody's making ta'liqat, all the comments, mashallah. Everybody's sincere advisors. No. Most people, they don't know what they're doing. And if you are sincere, if there's only way to do it, somebody else, yakfik. Someone already posted something, say, this is wrong. I advised them. But your advice was tashni'. You're just saying some nonsense. This guy's an idiot, ignorant. That's what we see in the comments. And most of us read because we want to see that anyways. And it's sad because we live in a society like this. But we want to be sincere, take it like this. And remember, if someone advises you or you advise them, do they have to accept your advice? No. It's good they did. If they don't, it's okay. You did your job. But you can't make it lazim. If I give you advice and you didn't accept it, then you're not a good person. Because that's not what an advice is. Remind, Allah says, Muhammad, you want a reminder? You can't force anyone anything. So Ibn Hajj talks about this. Your advice shouldn't be, it's not a threat, it's not an ultimatum. You listen to me or else. No, I give you advice. That's the prophets used to say to their people. So let's take a look now at the difference between the two. Before that, Yahya ibn Ma'in rahimahullah said, ما رأيت على رجل خطأ إلا سرته. I never saw someone make a mistake except I privately advised them. وأحببت أن أزين أمره, and I hope to rectify his affair and beautify it for him. وما استقبلت رجلا في وجهه بأمر يكرهه, and I never had to face someone with something which they disliked, an affair which they disliked. ولكن أبين له خطأه, I clarify his mistake for him. فيما بيني وبينه, between me and him. فإن قبل ذلك وإلا تركته. If he accepts it for me, that's great. If not, I left it. So this is the sincerity of the Salaf. Right? The great Imam al-Hadith, Yahya ibn Ma'in, rahimahullah, is saying this. Ibn al-Qayyim, he writes beautifully in Kitab al-Ruh. And Kitab al-Ruh is in English. The translation is not the best, but it's still doable for those who want to read it. Kitab al-Ruh, Ibn al-Qayyim is a very beautiful book, especially towards the end. Because at the end he has a lot of different sifat, qualities, and he differentiates. Difference between hope and anxiety, counsel, condemnation. He has all these differences, and he differentiates backbiting, advising. So if you read the kitab, it's beautiful, especially the end. It's very nice advices. I recommend the brothers, sisters to read it. He writes, page 331, this is the English translation, the difference between counsel and condemnation. So counsel's advice. He said, counsel is being merciful towards the one whom you advise, while seeking the pleasure of Allah. This is advice. You're being merciful towards the one who you advise while seeking the pleasure of Allah. And the advisor is patient if mistreated by the one whom he advises. He is similar to a physician who tolerates the ill behavior of his patient and persuades him to take his medicine. As for condemnation, it is to castigate, to defame in the guise of counsel. An advisor will not resent you if you reject his counsel. In fact, he will supplicate for you in his absence, and he will not mention your shortcomings. But the one who condemns is the opposite. So there's a difference. Someone who's condemning you, they will get angry if you don't accept. And they will get angry if you don't accept, and they wish bad for you. And they think they're saying good to you, but they're not being merciful to you, being rough with you. See, brothers, it's important, because some of us saying giving nasiha. Then, why is the nasiha like this? You're not giving nasiha, you're doing condemnation. Isti'nab wa ta'deeb. That's what you're doing. You're condemning me. So also we have to know this, because sometimes we have to clarify. We have to know what we're doing. Sometimes we don't even know what we're doing, to be honest. In our head we're telling ourselves one thing. Why are you using those foul language? Right? It's important. If you're getting advice to someone, it's the first time you're advising them, or you want to advise them in a way that you hope to be advised. Because we go back to the principle. يَأْتِي إِلَى النَّاسِ مَا يُحِبُّ أَن يُؤْتَى إِلَيْهِ. Treat people the way you want to be treated. That's the golden principle. I want people to be nice to me if I make a mistake. I don't want people to jump on me while waiting for me to fall, right? Because that's unfortunately how some people are. So even ourselves, we have to teach the people what it looks like. There's a difference between advice and condemnation. If you have to condemn someone, it's different. Condemn them. It's different. If you condemn them. They deserve it, fine. But don't later say, I'm trying to advise them. Condemnation has its place. Refutation or rebuking has its place. So it's very important, brothers, that we also pay attention to the delivery. Right? Because even in the dunya, packaging counts. Okay? Packaging counts. Right? If someone give you a gift, I want to sell a good packaging. Yes. Don't tell me you're going to give me a gift and you're going to give me a gift and it's all ripped up. Sometimes you forget. This is dunya, it's hayat dunya. And this is important because you have to know that in the top of your head. You have to find these opportunities to advise people in the best way. Scholars also advise the best way to advise or pick a topic or time to talk about is when it's munasib. It's perfect timing, suitable. Something came up, okay, perfect. This is the chance. It's already came up. I'll take it direct. I'll take the topic that direction. Between me and this person, they're talking about something. I want to just say something about it because that way it's easier. It's already came up. And the same way, if someone you want to advise them, you want to do it privately. And sometimes the bigger the issue, the more maybe gentle you have to be. And this is after the person you want good for them. Of course, it differs for someone who's stubborn or someone who knows better and someone who you told them before and they're still doing it. You might have to escalate, right, the way you're dealing with them. But just remember yourself. That's what I want to pay attention to. Because a lot of us, we notice that, right? Inside the masjid even, somebody made a mistake. What do you want to do? You want to correct them. How are you going to correct them? Look at the ma'al. What's the result? So sometimes we just say, okay, man, I got to tell the guy, come here, it's hadith Rasulullah, this is bid'ah, don't do that again. He doesn't know you. He doesn't trust you. So what are you going to do? You got to live different. What's your name? So we're going to talk about later. Communication. You don't even know the guy's name. So you got to take his name. What's your name? And he said, so-and-so, I want to tell you something. You use his name, term of endearment, you already brought him in. You tell him your name. He said, and you talk about, I didn't see you for here. You look for those kind of, and we're going to look at now, you got to find ways to find an exclusive person, then you bring it in. Kuffar, they know this too. You want to complain, you want to do something, you mix between praise and criticism. You put together, you make a sandwich, they call it. Complaint sandwich, You have a piece of bread and the meat in the middle. And it works. Rasulullah ﷺ used to use it too. And he's the best of those who advise. Hadith Bukhari, Muslim, Hadith Ibn Umar. Ibn Umar saw himself one day in a dream, he was in Jahannam. So he got so scared, he told Rasulullah ﷺ, he told Hafsa, his sister, his wife, the Prophet ﷺ, she told him. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Abdullah is a good man. I just wish he prayed tahajjud. Pay attention, brothers. This fa'idah, today the kuffar are talking about it. These are considered expert methods of complaint or correction. You praise, can't criticize. So you can start off with the praise and you criticize what you want, or constructive criticism, you can end with another praise. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Ni'mul rajul, how excellent of a man is Abdullah, if he only prayed tahajjud. Abdullah ibn Umar, when he heard that from his sister, he never left tahajjud the day he died. See, this is what we need. Not today you come and say to me, I got to tell you the truth, you just drop a ton of bricks on him. What kind of nasiha is that? What kind of good wish are you? Especially if you knew what you're going to tell him is heavy. Think. Not saying don't tell someone the truth, but think about it for a second. How should I do this? Because Nabi ﷺ concerned about people's outcome. He wants the best for people. Because when Abdullah heard that, that's it. But today, we can't do better than him, alayhi salatu wasalam. He's the best. And I think it's also an appropriate method to use, especially with children, with your spouse, with a close friend. You got to see the good in people and also hope good for them, but also coming from a place. You have to show them you come from a good place. That's emotional intelligence. Because imagine it was you. You're making a mistake. I hope my friend can see some good in me. Not the worst. If I'm bad at something, at least he's not going to have to say it in a way that's going to make me get worse, because people are sensitive. So I'm telling you this, brothers, because it also goes back to what we're saying. But now let's take an example. When you're doing inkar, for example, someone did something haram or wrong. I want to make inkar. I want to detest it. I want to rebuke. I want to warn against it. Don't jump to conclusion without asking. So here, the scholars mention this case. He writes a chapter, تجنب الإنكار إنكار قبل استفهامي. To avoid detesting or rebuking or refuting evil before asking questions. Make sure you know the context. So if you're emotionally intelligent, you always look for the angles. Okay, what's going on here? What did he do? Why did he do it? When you get all the facts, okay, this is wrong. Now you see someone do something, what are you doing? I don't know what happens. He's not doing anything wrong. The better question is, what are you doing? Suspecting you're doing something wrong. And it's important to think about those. And sisters, why this is important? Because imagine it was you. Someone would hope that they have at least all the facts. So let's give the story. Let's give the example. The Shaykh says, take a look at the example of Musa and Qaadir alayhimus salam. When Qaadir poked a hole in the boat, Musa, of course, was upset. And then Qaadir told him, Musa said to him, أخرقتها, did you destroy it? To destroy it, to ruin its people and ruin their wealth and to drown them. لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا إِمْرًا. You have really come with something severe. And let's say when he killed the boy, same thing. We know Musa's story. Musa was basing on his sharia. He didn't know these exemptions Allah revealed to Qaadir. So Qaadir obviously acted on wahi. But Musa, before asking, right, he came to conclusion because based on sharia that's not allowed. But of course, Qaadir explained to him and then later they had to separate. So we learn from there it's better to first ask, get the context before getting to test something. Another example, Prophet Sulaymaan alayhi salam, when the hudhud was missing, the hoopoe bird. Sulaymaan said, Allah says in the Quran, وَتَفَقَّدَ الطَّيْرَ. He looked at the birds and he found that the hudhud was missing. فَقَالَ مَا لِي أَرَى الْهُدْهُدَ أَمْ كَانَ مِنَ الْغَائِبِينَ. How come I don't see the hudhud, the hoopoe bird? Or is it from those who are absent? لَعَذِّبَنَّهُ عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا. I will punish it severely. أَوْ لَأَذْبَحَنَّهُ I will slaughter it. أَوْ لِيَأْتِيَنِّي بِسُلْطَانٍ مُبِينٍ. Or it's going to come to me with clear proof and evidence of what is going on. So he asked him, of course the story continues, he asked him, where did you go? Why is he's a bird? Because of adala. You want to punish someone, you have to know he's a ma'zur. Right? You can't make inkar of munkar, something's not munkar. That's the first problem too. If you want to make inkar of munkar, you have to know it's munkar. But if someone give you udhr shar'i, okay, it's not munkar. Mathalan, someone's coming, you see someone in the fridge stealing something or taking food out of the fridge. You look at him like, astaghfirullah, he's stealing. You jump on him. Okay, the Sharia doesn't tell you jump on him anyways. But you grab him, you say, that's it, we're going to take you to the Imam. And then if another person is homeless, he has no food. Astaghfirullah. The Sharia, what does the Sharia say about that, brothers? Someone steals from your fridge, he's homeless. Is he allowed to eat the food? It's not allowed. He has no food. If he has money, he has to pay back. But if he's starving, what can we do? But here you are, citizen arrest. MashaAllah, no context. A lot of us, this is what we do. And we say later on, we're like, oh, I didn't know. And yeah, exactly, you didn't know. You didn't want to know. That's what it is. And we have to be careful because a lot of times that's where we start the rumors and problems with each other. You have a half story. And this is very important because the Sharia is just. And it happened to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam one time. So when the Sahaba, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, Muslim, Ahmad, one day Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, a Sahabi came complaining to him. He came to Rasulullah shirtless. Another Sahabi came with his shirt and some food in his hand. And Rasulullah, this man complained to Rasulullah about this other man. So he said, he beat me and took my shirt. So Rasulullah told him what happened. He told him a story. He was taking some fruit out of my garden. So Nabi said, why didn't you ask him if he was hungry or he's poor? Why don't you feed him if he was poor or teach him if he's ignorant? Why did you have to take his shirt and beat him? You see, you can imagine, you saw the man taking from his fruits. In the Sharia, we have ahkam for this. If you have a garden, someone stealing your fruit, there's a hukum shara'i for that. But the Sahabi, he saw him, he beat him, took his shirt. I mean, then later the Sahabi who was stealing won the case. Some of us will be like, well, how does that work? Because if he was ignorant, you should have taught him. You didn't teach him. You beat him. That's not the teaching. And number two, he said, if he was hungry, you should have fed him. Give back his shirt and give him this much food as a compensation. That's Sharia, brothers. And where does it come from? I mean, sometimes it comes from our own maybe inability to react in the right way. But also imagine if you asked the person, what are you doing? He said, I'm very hungry, I never eat all day. Then what are you going to do? You're like, okay, fine, you can take some. See, but if you just come and just, do all the other stuff, and a lot of times it's important, brothers, we have to come from perspective. If it was you, and it's very important, if it was one of us who was in that dire situation, the last thing you want when you're hungry is to get beaten by somebody else for trying to survive. All right, another example, Sheikh mentions here, Sheikh Faisal, a very nice story about an imam from the scholars of the past. Imam Dhahabi mentions Siyar A'lam al-Nubala. One day Abu Kamil al-Basri, rahimahullah, says, I was sitting down with my mashayikh in a majlis of Ibn Khanab, one of the ulama, and we were reading the hadith about the fadail of Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And we already passed the fadail of Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman already. So we're in the fourth of the three Khalifas. He already passed the first three. So another Imam Shaykh came in, or a student, named Abu Fadl al-Sulaymani. And he sat down, he just heard the other man talking about the hadith of the Fadail of Ali. Right? I mean, what does that look like? The Shia or something? That's the Shia? That's what he thought. So he yelled, أيها الناس هذا دجال فلا تكتبوا وخرج من مجلس. This man's Dajjal. What's in? We're studying Muslim Hadith. It's way down there. Dajjal means not liar. Istijal is the old line. فَلَا تَكْتُبُوا, don't write from him. وَخَرَجَ مِن مَجْلِسٍ, he left the majlis. Because he only heard the hadith of Ali. He never knew the other hadith already passed. So Imam Dhahabi writes in the commenting on this, right, about this Shaykh Sulaymaan, he says to him, this indicates the roughness of this Imam, may Allah pardon him. Because he didn't have the context. He didn't know he did all the other hadith. So imagine, you walk in, you hear someone talking about Hassan Hussein. You think he's a Shi'i? Come on, we also love Ahlul Bayt, Ahlul Sunnah Jama'ah. Right? But some of us, we just, it's very important, these kind of things, because at the end of the day, you never get criticized for taking your time. You only get criticized when you rush. At-ta'anni min Allah wal-ajratu min ash-shaytan, al-hadith Anas, hadith Hassan. Hastiness is from shaitan, deliberation is from Allah. So always be deliberate, take your time. Ask the questions, especially if you know you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. Let's look at another example similar to this. The Sharia doesn't permit any one of us to take someone else's property without permission, even if it's something small. And we looked at some obviously examples where the Sharia exempts people who are suffering or very hungry and poor. But there's a hadith, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Hadith Ibn Umar in Bukhari, a animal should not be milked without the permission of its owner. Okay, and Prophet said this hadith. Look at the connection between the emotional intelligence, the empathy. لا يحلبن أحد ماشي أحد. No one should milk the animal of another man. إلا بإذنه, except with his permission. أيحب أحدكم أن تؤتى مشربته فينتقل طعامه. The Prophet said, would any one of you like someone come to your storehouse and breaks your container and takes away your food? And of course, it's a rhetorical question. And the Prophet said, in the udders of the animals are the stores of the owners, where their provisions kept, so nobody should milk another man's animal without permission. Look at the connection between the two. Connecting you don't want others to do to others, same thing you wouldn't want someone to do to you. That's the essence of empathy. Because when we do these small things, we always think, nobody will care. But imagine, the person, if it's his property, and you didn't seek permission, would you like that? Someone comes to your house as a guest and opens your fridge and pours some milk. You never told them you can do that. None of us are going to invite that person again, right? Unless you said this is your house, you can do whatever you want. But most of us wouldn't accept that. But then sometimes we look at work in school, we're just taking people's stuff off their desk. It's okay, this guy won't care. He's going to write with his pen, I'm just going to use his photocopying code. It gets worse and worse, right? Progressively worse till you start taking people's cars and what else, other things you shouldn't be doing. And then later you say it's okay. No, the Sharia doesn't say it's okay. And look at the hadith, brothers. Because even if the person is rich, you can't do that. قال عليه الصلاة والسلام لا يحل مال امرئ مسلم إلا بطيب نفس. It's not permissible for you to touch the property of another person, in this case another Muslim, except with their permission. That's a principle in the Sharia. Period. Not your neighbors, not your brothers, not your sisters. Some things are shared, but something that's theirs, you gotta ask permission, even if it's something small. Because the Sharia, why does it say that? The ulama explain, and Imam Nawawi says, rahimahullah, Sharh Muslim, that the meaning of the first hadith was that the udder of the animal is the food and the storage for another person. So here it's impermissible, right, for you to take it without permission, or to use it, or to milk the animal. And it's prohibited to take the person's wealth except with their permission, and to eat what is theirs, and to just use it without permission, whether it be milk or other than that, whether someone needs that wealth or not, except for the one who's in dire case, like we said, for dire food situation of eating and drinking and necessity. In that case, Imam Nawawi said that person could eat someone else's food without permission. وَلَكِنْ وَيَلْزَمُهُ بَدْلٌ عِنْدَنَا وَعِنْدَ الْجُمْهُورِ. The Sharia says that if you did do that, you have to return that later. You have to compensate, right, later when you have money and wealth, or you returned it. So we take a benefit from the Imam Hafid ibn Abdul rahimahullah writes, in this hadith is a prohibition of a Muslim taking another Muslim's property, and it is not specific to milk. Rather, milk was mentioned here لِتَسَاهُلِ النَّاسِ فِيهِ, because people are so easy going with it at that time. فَنَبَّهَ بِهِ عَلَى مَا هُوَ أَوْلَى مِنْهُ. And the Rasul uses an example for that which is more serious. Right? So there's not takhsis here, right? There's no mafhum mukhalaf here, or takhsis. You can't say it's only for milk. No, it's general. Prophet used the example of milk just to show that. That's usually what people think is light. So what do we take from this? In Islam, you have to respect people's property because it's a matter of what? Privacy and boundaries, brothers. Now, privacy and boundaries. Everyone has boundaries. Everyone has privacy. So if for example, I don't want anyone coming to my room, or anyone touching my car, or anyone touching my thing without permission, you'll have that feeling and principle, someone else has it. So treat people the way you want to be treated. But sometimes we do to others, but we will never do for ourselves, and that shows that we don't have good brotherhood. Again, Ibn Hazm rahimahullah writes in Akhlaq, in the Kitab Akhlaq wa Siyar, the book about morals and morality, that you should never ask a friend to do something for you which you will never do for them. See, brothers, we got to learn what it means to be a friend. If you would never do it yourself, why would you expect that person to do it? If you wouldn't accept it for yourself, why would you think he would? And if someone will say, but it's just a small thing. So what does Sharia want? Ask permission. And when someone asks you permission, وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ, we don't prevent the ma'oon. Ma'oon is the small stuff. Someone asks you a bucket, a cup, some water, a tool, that's the ma'oon. So if someone asks you for that, you say, Bismillah, no problem. That's the Sharia. Ask me, I'll let you. But you have to ask me. That's the difference. When someone else says, okay, akhi, son, brother, he's not going to do anything. And this is why so many times we overstep people's boundaries, and we later we find out why the brothers are angry. Look at our Sharia, how serious it is. And that's why the Sharia came to protect people's amwal to that degree. All of these examples are relating, going back to the principle we talk about, is empathy. To be emotional intelligence, to be empathetic. And empathy is, just remember how you would feel if you're in that situation. If you do that, you're always going to end up with the best type of outcome. But also, brothers, what do we notice in a continuous theme? The Sharia has come with all of this and more. This is in the Kitab and Sunnah, everything I mentioned. How many things are we not paying attention to? How many things do we just pretend are not important, or we're not aware of them? And this is our deen. And then we wonder later on why our fabric of our community is da'if, it's weak, or people are not getting along, because we don't give each other our rights. وَأَعْطِي كُلِّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقَّهُ, give everyone their right, they do right. We're not giving each other the rights. You have to study adab and akhlaq. You can't just assume you know it. And sometimes we notice, because we don't know it, I can trample all over it. But one thing you do know, even if I don't know all these hadith, I have to put myself in other people's shoes. I used to know that much. Right? So we all know that. So next time you want to park your car incorrectly in front of the masjid, have some emotional intelligence and park properly. And go read Sharh Riyadh Salihin ibn Uthaymin, what he comments about some Muslims park their car however, in front of the door. And he said that's haram. He mentions haram, Shaykh. And he brings, of course, the hadith about harming the people. And we know the hadith about what Imam Adha al tariq sadaqah. So the opposite is true. Moving something harmful in the street, sadaqah. Putting something harmful in the street is sayyah. So it's haram in Sharia. But sometimes we come with Jum'ah, I got to pray Jum'ah. That's for you, whatever everyone else. And if you're late for Jum'ah, right? If you're late for Jum'ah, fine, you're late, it's okay. What do latecomers have to do? You came late, so inshallah. That's the price you have to pay for coming late. Then I'm late, I said get the front row, mashallah. No. You're late, but brothers, what happened? Most of the time, emotional intelligence is missing. We don't feel in our heart when we're praying salah, somebody else is stuck. Some of us don't feel it in our salah, we're just praying with khushu', mashallah, sunan, somebody else is blocked. No, what happened to your empathy? And brothers, it's very bad, because if you're this way, then what about other things in our huquq? People's wealth, people's money. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he was so angry. He got very angry many times when he heard people running away from the deen in the masajid because other people were not giving them easy time. And the one hadith, the Prophet said, whoever gives the people a hard time, may Allah give them a hard time. Right? Whoever is in charge of people and is giving them a hard time, Allah give them a hard time. And it's true. The way you treat people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may treat you. So you have to always be empathetic. Even if that means I'm going to pray late for Jum'ah, it's okay. It's okay. I'm late anyways. I put my car far away. I come late. I missed it. Or even I came very late. It's okay. I didn't block anybody. And Allah will reward me for that. And this is also why we also have to think deeply about this emotional intelligence thing, because it also is going to show up in different areas of your life, and it is part of your akhlaq. It's a testimony of your akhlaq, who you really are. Because if you told me I have good akhlaq, and then there's so many other violations and infractions against others, then you don't really have good akhlaq, because akhlaq is between you and Allah, either between you and others, between you and yourself. And we'll look at some more examples next week, especially moving towards body language. We want to talk about that. And also then we move into, from there inshallah, into discussion about communication skills, and how the Prophet ﷺ used to communicate, what techniques and tips he would use to guide people, to make them feel welcomed, to get people to do, inshallah, what you want, and influence them in a positive way. These are the important techniques. We also have to be mindful, brothers, that when we're looking at this point, it's practical. So we try our best to practice these things, inshallah, in our life. If anyone has any questions, we'll take it with Allah ta'ala. Exactly. Taghaful is to pretend you didn't see something or hear something that you did hear or see. So it's a pretending because you do hear it. It's not ghafla, it's taghaful. Right? Taghaful here in that sense, it's in the form of either pretending or deliberately doing something. So it's an important quality, and obviously it has rules too. But the gist of it is that you always try to look for, the moments where you can say, you have to say something where you don't have to say. You have to be mindful. Especially when it comes to criticizing or advising people. Not everything you can hold the people to account. And also it's a good etiquette that if you want to advise people some things, you ignore other things and prioritize some things. So it's also parents and children. If you want to advise your child to fix some mistakes, you can't pull up all the mistakes, especially in one sitting. So you pick some mistakes and you ignore others. Why? Prioritizing it. And that's why if you pick and choose your battles, what we did today. But also it's a great etiquette that if you're around people, especially the people of ilm and adab, they're not holding you accountable for your mistakes. They overlook and they pardon. And this is important because it goes back also to the idea that I saw it, but I ignored it. Right? So we just take the best road. Always be this way. Anyone else have any questions? طيب إن شاء الله next week we'll continue بإذن الله تعالى. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.